Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. I want to share a couple of polls and then on to the main subject. This first one, I think it's the first national Democratic primary poll taken since the New Hampshire primary. I could be wrong about that, but whether it is or not, it's very interesting. It's also bad news, it would seem, for Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders seems to have really pulled ahead nationally. He is doing better, actually, nationally now than he did in the New Hampshire primary. Let me just give you the numbers. Bernie Sanders is now at 29% nationally. But what's even more interesting than that, I'm not really surprised that he pulled ahead, but I am a little surprised. He is now, after just two primaries, he is 10 points ahead of Joe Biden. So it's Bernie Sanders at 29%, and Joe Biden 10 points behind at 19%. Biden was pinning his hopes on pulling ahead of Sanders in the next primaries, especially South Carolina, but it looks like he's going to be out of the running, and I would say maybe sooner than he thinks, but maybe not sooner than I think. Notice also that in third place, because there was also a virtual two-way contest in Iowa and New Hampshire between Sanders and Buttigieg. But look now, Buttigieg is in fourth place nationally at only 11%, and look who's ahead of him. Look who's in third place, Michael Bloomberg. So I guess that money he's throwing around, those hundreds of millions of dollars, they're getting at least some results. And look where Elizabeth Warren is. She's in fifth place, and Amy Klobuchar, remember the excitement that was starting to build around her because of how well she did in New Hampshire. Nationally, she is only at 5%. She was at 3%. She got a 2% boost for all of that. Now she's at 5%. So, as I've said in the past, it's looking more and more like it's going to be Bernie Sanders. Even if, well, I saw a short interview clip with Bernie Sanders saying how bad it would be if he gets the most votes, the most delegates, and does not get the nomination. I'm thinking more and more that he is going to be the nominee. Stay tuned. Now, this next poll is about Donald Trump, and this is good news for him, and I found this interesting too. Huge. More, quote, better off, unquote, under Trump than Clinton, Bush, and Obama. This is another poll. Another day, another positive Gallup headline for President Trump. So it's a Gallup poll. A record 61% said they are better off than they were 3 years ago when Trump beat Democrat Hillary Clinton in a shocking election. What's more, people give Trump much more credit for the improved economy than former President Barack Obama, whose supporters have been claiming credit. Some 26% gave Obama a, quote, great deal, unquote, of credit compared to Trump at 37%. And by the way, I take these quotes, most of the time I just do a screenshot of the actual article on the internet. So you'll notice here that it says here Barack Obama, whose supporters, and it's WHO apostrophe S. It should be, of course, WHOSE. So don't sick the grammar police on me. I am not responsible. I just took a screenshot of what was there. Anyways, that's very good news for Donald Trump. So we have bad news for Biden, good news for Sanders, good news for Trump. Actually, double good news for Trump, possibly, because not only do we have this better off result, this poll, but it looks increasingly like his opponent is going to be Bernie Sanders. And I would also add that in the Rasmussen poll this morning among likely voters, Trump is at 50%, approval. The disapprove is 49%, so there's 1%, I guess, that can't make up their mind, but his approval is 50%, and though it's a small margin, it's greater than his disapproval. Now, what I want to talk about today is about Donald Trump. It's, as I said in the title, something about Donald Trump that is not reported. I am aware of this because, as I've said in the past, I lived in New York for 40 years. I lived in New York through all of Donald Trump's career, except for the last year maybe, because I moved to Tennessee, and then he moved to Florida, actually changed his residence to Florida before the year was out. So I only missed a few months of Trump in New York. And a few years before I moved to New York, I think he started his career. He first came on the radar screen in 1975. I came to New York at the very end, October of 1977. What is not known about Trump, or what is not reported about him, is that he has this reputation as being a very rough, nasty person who doesn't show any charity to anybody else. That could not be more false. That could not be more incorrect. And it's to Trump's credit that he is modest about it. When people do not recognize, when the press does not report the many charitable acts that Trump has done over his career, they don't report it, but he doesn't come out and say, actually, I'm a nice guy. Actually, I do a lot of charitable things. I do help a lot of people. He doesn't come out and say it. It's too bad that he doesn't. Well, it's a credit to him, I would think, that he doesn't toot his own horn, but it's a discredit to the media. Most of the media anyhow, except for this news story that I'm going to read right now, and an old video from many, many years ago. I'm going to talk about that at the end, that they don't report this side of Donald Trump that everybody should know about. So I'm going to tell as many people as I can about it right now. So I hope if you are impressed that you'll share this video, as I ask you to share all of them. But this is something that should be known about Donald Trump. Here's the headline: the facts about Trump that are deadly for Democrats. So now you know why they don't report it. I'll just go down the article, give you some quotes, and then I'm going to talk about that video. I have to give you a little setup for that, but here are these quotes. The Democrats didn't like President Donald Trump's State of the Union address because he highlighted data such as the strong economy and record employment under his watch they'd rather voters didn't know. But those points were just a start. There's much more about Trump that his opponents want to hide from the public. The Democrats have stayed true to their talking points, calling Trump a, quote, monster, unquote, a, quote, white supremacist, unquote, and a, quote, dictator, unquote, at every opportunity. While campaigning in New Hampshire, Joe Biden said the president, quote, doesn't have a shred of decency in him, unquote. Former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg wants to convince voters, quote, this election is a decency check on this president, unquote. Tom Steyer, who apparently didn't wish to strain his vocabulary's limits, simply says Trump is, quote, a bad man, unquote. None of those charges would stick, though, if the electorate knew that, and here comes a list. In 1986, Trump helped stop the foreclosure of Annabelle Hill's family farm in Georgia. He contributed $39,000 toward the money she needed to pay off the mortgage. 2 years later, Trump sent his personal jet to fly 3-year-old Andrew 10 across the country for critical medical care after commercial airlines refused to allow his life support system on board. In 2000, Trump gave a, quote, generous, unquote, check to the family of a young girl named Megan who was suffering from brittle bone disease. He saw her on the Maury Povich show and was moved. Trump not only allowed actress Jennifer Hudson, who is black, and her family to stay free at his Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago after her mother and brother were murdered in 2008, he apparently increased security for them. 3 years before winning the presidency, and that's important. Trump did all this when he was a real estate developer, long before he had any thought of running for political office. 3 years before winning the presidency, Trump gave a $10,000 check to bus driver Darnell Barton, who stopped a suicidal woman from jumping off an overpass in Buffalo. A year later, Trump wrote a $25,000 check to retired Marine Sergeant Andrew Tamorisi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who had been in a Mexican jail for 7 months. While carrying loaded weapons, he had made a wrong turn on a California freeway that forced him into the Tijuana port of entry with no way to turn back. Trump sent the money to help Tamorisi, quote, get back on his feet, unquote. These examples, which have been independently verified, were first compiled along with others at Town Hall by Liz Crokin. Town Hall is a conservative news website. Obviously, you're not going to see any of what I just reported to you on a liberal news website. Anyways, back to the quote. As an entertainment journalist, Crokin, quote, had the opportunity to cover Trump for over a decade, unquote, and in all of those years, she, quote, never heard anything negative about the man until he announced he was running for president, unquote. Quote, Trump's kindness knows no bounds, and his generosity has and continues to touch the lives of people from every sex, race, and religion, unquote, she wrote. Quote, when Trump sees someone in need, he wants to help, unquote. Now we get to the video. On top of all of those acts of kindness that I just mentioned, I just want to talk about something called the Woolman Rink that you may not be familiar with, that I know very well because I lived in New York. The Woolman Rink is an ice skating rink in the middle of Central Park, donated by obviously a family named Woolman. Many years ago, it fell into disrepair. The Woolman Rink was slated to be renovated. The city had been spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to renovate the Woolman Rink, and nothing was getting done. Trump could see it from his office atop the Trump Tower. He would look out through his office every day. He would see this rink sitting there in disrepair, maybe construction material piled up and nothing being done. He decided to do something about it. I'm going to show you now a news report, a video of Trump being congratulated for what he did, and you're going to see my favorite mayor, well, second favorite mayor after Rudy Giuliani. That would be Ed Koch. When you say New York or New York character, that's Ed Koch. He just personified New York for me. But, well, just watch the video and then come back, and I'm just going to give you my final goodbye.
Well, many people thought the skating rink in Central Park was abandoned, but now there is something to cheer about. The Woolman Skating Rink in Central Park is open again. The city spent nearly 6 years and $12 million trying to fix it, and then to the rescue, developer Donald Trump. As Tracy Egan tells us now, he accomplished in 3.5 months what the city couldn't do in 6 years.
Mayor Koch and Donald Trump shook hands and came out complimenting each other for reopening Woolman Rink.
Donald, you performed a great public service.
No roadblocks were put up. In fact, it was the exact opposite. We've gotten our permits, our approvals. We've gotten everything as quickly as it could be gotten.
Everything included the city's permission to step in and finish the project, originally scheduled for completion in 1982, but repeatedly delayed.
We executed quickly. We came in 3 months ahead of schedule, and we saved this entire season, which really we're very happy about. And we also came in $750,000 under budget.
The mayor gives Trump full credit for getting the job done. However, he does note that Trump did not have to hassle with the state's Wicks law. The Wicks law requires municipalities to put out separate bids for each aspect of a project, including construction, plumbing, electrical, heating, and ventilation work. They are bound by law to accept the low bid, even if another bidder has a better reputation. Koch says the rink project teaches a lesson.
The lesson is that there is much to be learned from the private sector. And so we will use what happened here as an illustration when we go to Albany and ask Albany to eliminate some of the restrictions that are imposed by law. The best illustration is the Wicks law.
So it took 6 years to get done and millions more than projected. But Trump says now that it's done, the city should be able to enjoy the Wallman Rink for the next 50 to 100 years. In Central Park, Tracy Egan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And there you have it, a part of Donald Trump, a good part, a great part of Donald Trump that the public doesn't get to see because the media just don't report it. And again, to his credit, he doesn't toot his own horn about it, though he certainly could. It shows a part of Donald Trump that I think personally is the real Donald Trump. I think it demonstrates that he is sincere when he talks about his national policies, when he talks about our great military and helping soldiers and doing things for the VA and opportunity zones and prison reform. That is not something just to get votes. I think that is the real Donald Trump. I just wanted to share that with everybody, and now that I have, I hope you will share it with everybody. And, well, let me give you my whole pitch that I put at the end of every video. Thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? You can put them in the comments section below the video, where you can also put any questions you might have, suggestions for future topics. You could subscribe. I would love to get more subscribers, so subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. And finally, come back and see me again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.